Hi, my name is Shawn Johnson and I'm with Red Rocks Church. One thing that I would say to you if you are getting ready to plant a church, have recently planted a church, or taking over a church plant, I would say decide early that you're going to be a generous church and start being generous before you feel like you actually can. See, I think this idea of being generous and starting a church many times are viewed as polar opposites, right? Because as you know, when you're starting a church, all you're trying to do is raise money and you're always asking for help and trying to get money. And I want to encourage you to also do the opposite, which is look for opportunities to be a generous church. Because what we learned from the very beginning, more than needing money as a church plant, what you need is God's involvement in your church plant. And as we know throughout the scriptures, God gets real involved when we get real generous. When our church was about a year old, we were presented with an opportunity to buy a van for a missionary. Now at that very same time, if we were getting paid anything, we were getting paid very little, and most of the team was making next to nothing. And we were all working second and third jobs so we could come work at the church. Many of you know exactly what that's like. And we decided, no, remember, we said from the beginning we're going to be a generous church. And so we decided to give away a week's offering at the church. And we asked the church to give real big this particular week. Our offerings were in the hundreds, each week. And that particular week, the church got real excited and they gave $10,000. And we were going to be able to buy this missionary this van. Well, that same week, the guy who was running our finances came up to me and he said, "Hey, Shawn, we got some real trouble. We have no money as a church." And he said, "We can either pay your salary this month, which is next to nothing, or we can pay our rent, which was also next to nothing, but we can't do both." And I thought, oh, great, I can't wait to go tell my wife the good news, and you're a pastor, so you have to say the right thing, right? You have to say, "Oh no, don't pay me, pay the rent." And then the next day, he comes to me and he says, it's even worse. He said, "We're not going to be able to finish the construction." We were knocking out a wall because our church was starting to grow, and the fire department came in and said we were going to need to spend a few $1,000s more on some of the remodel, or they weren't going to let us open the doors on Sunday. And so all of a sudden, our small little staff of 6 people, we sat in a circle and we literally asked the question, are we done? We can't pay the rent, nobody's getting paid this month, and we don't have enough money to finish the construction to open the doors next Sunday anyways. And all of a sudden we remembered we got $10,000 for a missionary van. We should probably take that, huh? But again, we reminded ourselves, no, we said from the beginning we were going to be a generous church, and more than money, we need God's involvement. And we gave the van away, and we gave the $10,000 away, and we just prayed and we said, God, now we've done our part, we rely on you. And no kidding, the next day, a pastor from another state across the country calls me, and he said, "Hey, Shawn, I was praying this morning, and I felt like God told me to send you some money. Does your church need some money?" And I about started crying right then and there. I was like, "Man, I will kiss you through this phone." And he sent us a check, and it was about $8,000 or $9,000. And I kid you not, almost to the penny. It paid off our construction. I got to get paid that month, and it paid our rent. Almost exactly what we needed came in. And we were reminded one more time, more than money, we need God's involvement in this church. And God gets real involved when we get real generous. So those of you getting involved with church startups, I want to encourage you to make some tough decisions from the very start and decide now that you're going to be generous, and watch what God will do.